We're all traveling through time together every day of our lives. All we can do is do our best to relish this remarkable ride. It's not me sounding very choked up. I just have a cold and a cough, so sorry about that. Welcome to the Three Body Narrative. We are your hosts, Pradyum, Aaron, and Naeem. We are here to discuss movies, TV shows, games, and everything pop culture. And for today's episode, we are here to discuss about the movie About Time. Well, guys, is it about time we discuss about time?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, that was just too easy. I think that's just the pun was too easy to. I couldn't miss that opportunity. So before we get to our ratings, let's talk about or let's give our viewers and listeners a bit about a brief plot point about this movie. So what's this movie all about? Well, it's about Tim Lake, who when he turns 21, his father tells him or lets him in to a bit of a secret, a family secret. The secret being that all men have the ability to travel through time. Ooh.
All men in their family.
Oh yes, all men. Yeah, so family secret. Yes, so all men in their family can travel through time. That's a bit of a tongue twister, but yeah. So what kind of adventures is Tim gonna get into? Is he gonna go, back in time, end wars, save humanity, make the world a better place? No, he uses that time travel opportunity to find himself a girlfriend. Whippy, we are doing a rom-com, guys. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a first. Yes, so the movie is all centered around Tim Lake and
Is this the
his.
first?
Sorry?
Is the first rom-com we're doing?
Proper rom-com? Yeah, sure. But yes, the movie is centered around Tim Lake and his adventure or his mission to find himself a girlfriend. And lo and behold, he moves into the city and he finds Mary, falls in love, wins her heart via a bit of time travel and a bit of trickery. But what life eventually shows you is that no matter what powers you have, things are not always as easy as it seems. Well, that's vague and very, very ambiguous as a plot point, but we're going to be dissecting all of it in greater detail in just some time. So, guys, let's start with our ratings and reviews. So, who wants to go first? Okay, I'm not going to ask that because it eventually ends up being me. So, let's go, Naeem. Let's start with you since you're the one who probably recommended this movie. It's your type of genre. So, why don't we get your opinions on this
Yeah.
first?
So absolutely, like I think I came across this movie on IMDb when I was looking for a rom-com to watch. And what caught my eye at the time, I think this movie released in 2013, but I didn't watch it
Yeah.
until much later. I don't know
Okay,
the first
before
time.
that, what prompted you to go searching on IMDb for a rom com? Where were you in life that made you follow such a decision?
I've always been into rom-coms.
Uh-huh.
In general, like from early teenagers at the very least. Actually, no, I think even younger because I used to watch a lot of Bollywood Shah Rukh Khan movies, and more often than not, they tend to have this rom com sort of a situation, like your DDLJs and your K2H2, etc., etc. Like there is a hint of comedy in there, and so he's probably. I've always had this uh, romantic sort of mixed with comedy that I kind of like to. It's like how you have comfort food. It's like my comfort movie kind of a thing, right? Uh, so yeah, I think that's why I was probably looking at it. Also, I'm guessing this was around either when I was starting out at my workplace, like the first job that I took, or it was at the time when I was just like between finishing my college and finding my job, somewhere around that time, because I know I had like just enough. I was in the right space in
Mm-hmm.
terms of uh, basically having enough
Emotionally, physically,
time. In
just
the sense
time.
that, yeah, for sure, yeah, like you kind of have that time for yourself where you kind of look for things that you want to enjoy, whether that be watching movies, doing some sort of activities, etc., etc. Anyway, coming back to this specific movie, so like I said, I was going through IMDb, and that's when I came across this specific movie. What caught my eye was that it had Rachel McAdams in it, and so and at the time I didn't even know the actor. Obviously, in fact, I think this was the first movie of his that I watched.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't quite know his name still, which is weird. I just know
Tom
he is,
Gleason. Gleason.
yes,
Yeah.
Gleason, right? And he's a
Yeah.
part of Star Wars universe that followed eventually, where he is
Oh, I'm surprised you know him through Star Wars. Okay, fair. Yeah.
General Husk, if I'm not wrong. Is it
Yeah,
Tusk,
yeah, yeah,
Husk?
yeah, yeah. Husk or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, coming back to this, like, so it was Rachel McAdams that kind of
Mm-hmm.
pulled me to watch this movie at the time. And when I watched it, my God, I was blown away with this guy's acting in this specific character. Like, I loved the way he took to that role. I loved the story plot points. I, without giving away too much, I just love the concept of having the superpower to be able to travel back in time, but to kind of use that to something so personal for a person, in terms of like his goal in life is to find the love of his life. That's
Mm-hmm.
what he wants to use this power for. He could use it for n number of issues, right? But he what he wants to focus is on that. And I love that bit about the movie. Like, it knows what it wants to do. And so for me, the pacing of the movie, the humor it has, the emotional beats it's got, just the way it kind of has these very, very strong moments. Some that's not even like to do with his love life per se, but something that unfolds later. And those kind of things like really add a lot more essence to the movie. And as a matter of that, as a result of that, I rate this movie as a 4 out of 5. I could go a little more higher on the scale, but I think uh, because of the ambiguities of time travel and how that's not completely explained, I think some amount of that gets like taken away in terms of the rating for me, because I'm always questioning certain things in the movie from that aspect. But for what the movie is focusing on, it does a brilliant job in sort of putting that across to you. And yeah, it's a solid 4 out of 5 for me.
Okay. Aaron, you seem surprised.
I had tough act to follow being so after him being so passionate about the movie, but yeah, I mean, one is I don't know, kind of surprised, but also not surprised that these are Naeem's kind of movies. But yeah, I think it was a decent movie. I think I would give it a 3.5. Uh, uh, Probably because I think it's a good watch. But I don't think there's anything that I would say in terms of story that was a standout. I think in many ways you could see what was coming, but I would echo Naeem in saying that the performances of the actors in general throughout the movie were quite good. So, like the dad's character, Tim himself, Rachel McAdams. So, you had some really nice characters, and you could watch them develop throughout the course of the movie. So, yeah, good watch. Uh, but yeah, I would recommend it, but it would be with a disclaimer like don't expect your mind to be blown by the movie. It's a more
Okay.
kind of chill and watch it if you've got nothing else to do, basically.
Uh-huh. Interesting. I wonder if Netflix and chill would be appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate for this one. No. Yeah, definitely not. But definitely, I mean, it was on Netflix and like just going by it as a chill watch. Okay, so 4, 3.5, and for me, I would rate it a 4, and that's, I guess, surprise. I mean, this isn't really my genre, my type of movie. You won't find me surfing for rom-coms or something like that. But for me, what I really liked about it is it wasn't cringy. There are so many rom-coms that go very cringy, and I feel like also the fact that it's probably 99% British, 98%, 95% British does help. I think they do a much better job of it not being over the top or hammy. And I like the fact that it was a very nice calming watch. And I love the humor. I love British humor more than I do American humor. It's a lot more witty. So I like that. I do love the relationship angle, and I feel like, yeah, for someone who is 21, and I could sort of relate to the character where he has a lot of crushes across his entire journey, and he wants to find his girlfriend. Now, whether that girlfriend becomes a, the journey from girlfriend to wife may have been a bit quick. That sort of, I guess, it becomes more a love at first sight, which is ironic given the fact that they met in a dark restaurant. So it couldn't have been love at first sight, given that they couldn't see each other. Get it? But yes, I really liked it. I really loved the cast. I thought the cast was really strong, and they had very, very strong British actors, in the sense that these are actors with huge pedigree, right? Okay, let's take away Domhnall Gleeson, who comes from a very, very big acting family. At least his father is a huge actor. If anyone knows whose father is, Brendan Gleeson, aka Mad Eye Moody from Harry Potter. So that's his father. So, or from In Bruges, all of that. So yeah, so he was there. I get, this is not the first time I've seen him. I think I may have watched this after the Harry Potter series. So I knew him first as Bill Weasley, and then later on as Tim, and then of course General Husk. Rachel McAdams, of course, I knew her. Then you had Margot Robbie, which took me by surprise actually when I first saw her. Did not expect her to be there whatsoever. Vanessa Kirby, again, really did not expect her to be there. Again, from The Crown, Fantastic Four, now recent Fantastic Four, all of that. You had Bill Nighy, who was from Pirates of Caribbean as Davy Jones, from Harry Potter as Rufus Scrimgeour, crazy actor there. You had, I think, the roommate of Tim, Harry. He was from the Pirates of Caribbean, who's the villain in the third one, right? Tom Hollander. You had, yeah, just a bunch of them. I could list them all. I think even someone as small a role as, the play that Harry sort of directs. Yeah, you had Vernon Dursley, who's the big chubby guy, and you had Richard E. Grant. They're all like really famous names. If you think about it, the ensemble is fantastic. And like you said, I think as much as the story plot is very basic, very usual, the actors pull it off, and I think the chemistry among all of them is brilliant. And for me, my favorite character was Uncle Desmond. I just love him. He's just so cute. He's so like innocent. I just love the character, to have him in there. And overall, yeah, I think the chemistry work between uh, Domhnall and Rachel McAdams. I loved the different plot lines that were happening. And yeah, overall, like I said, 4 out of 5 for me, which is probably high praise for a rom-com movie. Definitely recommended. I think one of the few rom-com movies which I've actually loved watching and wouldn't mind watching again. All right, so
Nice.
now that you have an entire sort of overview or of our ratings and how we perceive this movie to be, let's talk about some of the plot points or the areas or the scenes that we want to discuss. So I think the first one I want to ask you guys is, say you were 21, right? And you were told that you had this power to go back, to travel in time. Now, of course, the caveat being is that you can't travel to beyond your existence. So in the sense that you can't go before you were born. So you can't go back to World War II, you can't go back to World War One and prevent all those disasters from happening. However, in your lifetime, you can go back to any point where you were at, as long as you can remember it. Right? That's also a very key thing. So as long as you remember it. So I think like I can't even go back to a point when I was a baby when I can't even remember. Right?
Yeah.
So given that you can do that, what would your goal be? So where would you go? Give me one instance in your life, in one point in your life, where you could have gone back or where you wish you could go back, and what would you probably change? You can be vague. I know you don't want to give off anything very private, obviously. So let's not get into the really nitty gritty details, but
I think
roughly.
you like ask these questions to us, like, or give us these questions beforehand so we can like prep and come with an answer, because it takes time to kind of think about what is this one point you want to go back in life. There are so many points you want to go back in life to kind of change on
No,
a
but
lot of.
just one, just give me any one point where that comes to the top of your mind. Obviously, if you come to think of something else better on later on, you can tell us that. Before you guys tell us, if you're listening or you're watching us, why don't you let us know in the comments down below
Yes,
where
let us know
at
about your
least
private moment in life. That we have
yeah,
something to think.
at least give us the age at which you would like to go. Come on, everybody likes to spill a bit about themselves online, so why not, right?
Interesting.
Who's going to judge? Certainly not us.
Yeah. Oh, so what is this one point that you would go back to in your life that you want to kind of change?
Yeah, a
Is it
year
is it
ago.
more is it more recent? A year
Yeah,
ago.
a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, maybe. Yeah, that's the one that comes back to the top of my head. Maybe a year ago.
I think to the earliest point in my life where I have this consciousness of being able to like change my food eating habits to kind
Okay.
of then tailor that to align more with the interests that I have, like in terms of sports, etc., etc. Kind of
There
change
was
that
there
mind.
was a point where you did that, and then something changed. So maybe I'd say it was not too far in the distant past.
Right, but I think at that point it's still quite like, I mean, what we're talking about, the early
2014,
20s.
2015.
And that's still quite late in terms of where I would
Sure,
probably.
but at that point you could still. But fair, I get what you're trying to say.
I generally mean like to be able to, whether that be even in sports in school, like during school, right? Like I'd I'd want to be more a part of the school teams and like things like that, and that would come naturally as part of being a healthier, more athlete version of myself, per se. So I think, yeah, going back to a point where my food habits and my uh, what do you say, lifestyle in general can be sort of
Yeah,
just adjusted slightly to kind of align more with my sporting love, I suppose.
fair. You could have finally taken my spot in the cricket team
Yeah,
when I didn't
yes.
even I didn't even participate in
I could have been the poster boy in school.
it. Yeah, yeah. Aaron, you've had enough time to think now.
He's like, I already, like, I don't need to do that. I was already there in all the school teams that were there possible.
Yeah.
Uh, so for starters, I don't think I'd go back in time to kind of change anything. I'd probably look at maybe going back in time to a point where maybe we weren't working.
Okay.
I mean, still could toss it up between school and college and stuff like that way, but maybe a point in time where we were kind of more ignorant to what working life and being an adult is, where we would just enjoy the day for what it was and kind of not worry about having to kind of go to work tomorrow or and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's more the stuff that I kind of, I guess, miss in, I guess, if you'd want to say that. But yeah, I don't think I'd change anything, and I think the movie also kind of touches on that like no matter how many things you kind of try to change and control, life will always find ways of kind of throwing curveballs at you, and so you just got to take them as it comes, I guess.
Very, very philosophical. Okay, but would
Very
any of
unlike
you?
me, though.
I mean, it would be very unlike me if I said that. I think
Hmm.
out of the three of us, it'd probably be, yeah, maybe Naeem would probably be like him. But I think you're there or thereabouts close enough. But would any of you use the time travel to find yourself a girlfriend? Or go back to say something to a crush that you once had? To say
I mean,
unspoken words.
yeah, I think if you were 21 and you got it, you kind of understand it, because I think, again, being at that age, you're probably more inclined to, I think, kind of sort yourself first before you kind of go and change anything
Yeah.
else. So I don't know if it would have been for a crush or a girlfriend, but self-interest, I could see myself probably attempting to do it. How successful that would be is anyone's guess, but yeah, I I do see myself probably trying to make things better in my perception, at least back then. But yeah,
Okay.
life has changed.
Yeah.
Like I don't know about like girls or chasing after girls or anything like that. In the
I
sense
was
that
asking to chase after girls. I'm just saying,
No,
would you go back to just say something to your crush?
Well,
I don't want you
well,
going
Praddy,
back.
he did say he would be more athletic back then, so maybe that's
Yeah.
how maybe that's how the athleticism would
yeah, I'll
come
chase
about.
after.
That's
Right.
his that's his mating ritual, his mating call.
But I guess there would be these. I mean, being 21, you kind of at that time and the mind frame you're in, basically, you would probably look at, or I mean, not you, I would probably look at undoing some of the more embarrassing moments or doing things that made me seem cooler in a situation, like more like that situation where, Margot Robbie is lying down and he squirts out a little more of the cream that
Queen,
that
yes. Yeah,
of the
thank
cream
God.
of
Yes.
the cream then
Time
he
to
should,
try time travel.
and how he
Yeah.
kind of like goes back in time and undoes
Undoes.
undoes, yes, the mistake, right? And
Do you want
like
to
those
time
kind
travel 5 minutes ago?
yes, I probably want to go back and kind of undo this whole thing.
Yeah.
uh
No,
but
but I get it. No, but in your personal thing, do you have someone who you wish you could just? I need a yes or no. Do you have someone who you wish you could have gone back and said something?
no,
No. Okay. Sure. Yeah. No. Here as well.
because I said enough. So you kind of want to undo some embarrassing moments, which
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
undo perhaps, but be a little more cooler or like have that
Yeah. Yeah. I think
swag.
I would want. Yeah. I want to go
You
back
kind of
and
want
tell.
to walk away feeling like, like it's okay, you held your own kind of a thing.
Yeah. I probably want to go back to my trip to Germany and tell my younger self, please do not eat pork sausages every day because you came back a fat, chubby kid. Yeah, and also please do not have that ridiculous hairstyle. But yes, no matter, life lesson learned. Now let's get to talking about the fact that he meets Mary in this, what I would describe as a very cute story. I think going out with a friend into this restaurant, which only I think is catered to by blind people, right? Not deaf.
Blind. The waiters
Yeah,
were all, yeah.
yeah. That's the whole point of dining in the dark. So it's a dine in the dark concept, and that's when he sort of meets Mary, and I think the conversation that they have is quite cute. It's fun. I think he feeds her eye strawberry mousse. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
which is I thought a really fun thing, and of course they plan to sort of meet outside the restaurant once done, and they meet, and it's They share numbers, all of that. But he goes back, finds his friend whose play completely breaks down, and he sacrifices that meeting for the friend. So it's a kind of bro before ho kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, wait. Yeah.
I think he didn't realize that, right? Because after that he goes to the phone to try and call Mary, and that's when he's like, "Oh shit, there's no Mary in my phone."
Yeah.
That's
Correct.
true. I
But
think.
yeah, the impulse to kind of go back and to help him for sure was quite a generous this thing.
I think the focus on the character is the upbringing he's got. Like in general, he does seem to be this caring and very respectful, very helpful kind of a person, and a lot of that is down to the upbringing he's had, the kind of family time which is like the focus in this, right? Like even though it's a very short span that they kind of spend on that, they do have an emphasis on how much that has been a part of his life, like spending a lot of time with his family, having good moments with them, doing very little things that like kind of add to who you are, and making you that warm personality that the character is in this movie. All of that is beautifully done, I suppose. And coming back to that moment, yeah, I think like Aaron said, right, that's a key point. Like we don't know if he goes through with this if he knows that he does not get the number, but I still have a feeling that he would, because that's the kind of person he is, not in
For
the
sure,
sense that.
because yeah, sorry, but for sure you can see that because even in the kind of high of him enjoying the whole meeting of the girl, he still kind of empathizes with Harry and goes back to kind of make things right. And so yeah, you could see how he would put someone else's interest above his own.
Yeah, and I think also it's kind of pointed out in the fact that he can time travel, right? So he could literally, once he screwed that up and he
Yeah.
realizes he dropped out the number, he could have easily just time traveled back to the day the date was supposed to happen, and instead of going to the theater to help his roommate out, he could have just gone ahead with the date and gotten a number again. But he chooses not to do that.
Yes.
Instead, he tries to figure out where this girl would
An
be at a
alternate.
different point in time, and tries to get to her at that, and that kind of just,
That's a good point.
yeah, makes like focuses on the fact that this guy in general is someone you want to have this kind of power. Like if someone is to have this kind
Yeah.
of power, it's really good that it's him.
Fair. Now, another thing is that his dad did mention that, or rather, before he said he wanted to use his power to get a girlfriend, he did ask whether he could become rich, right? And that's when his dad dissuaded him from doing so, because he said that no matter, I think his grandfather, or someone, or his uncle, someone
Some
did that.
uncle,
Some
some
uncle,
uncle.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
did that
Based out of
very
me.
same thing, and completely didn't have anyone else. He didn't have any friends. He shunned everyone out of his life in order to generate his wealth. So it does kind of show that, you know having all the money in the world isn't all that. Like
It's
I
not a
think,
recipe for a happy life
yes,
necessarily.
not a rest. Yeah, it's not a recipe. And I think, is it in this movie where he says that if you do marry someone who's kind?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, it was in
other
this, right?
best man speech.
the father's toast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So it does speak a lot, and I think that's something I think is quite true, or quite, I would live by that value. I think that's a very important value to have, or rather, I would think that's the right way to go about it, right? Like, you want to be with someone who's kind, not necessarily, money can come and go, all of that stuff. But yes, I think more important, someone who's there for you. So, uh, obviously, we do have that montage of what happens with Margot Robbie, which is hilarious, awkward, but at the same time also cute. Now, what did you make of that whole thing where finally ends up in her room? She says, "This is the last night. Try before." He goes back a few days before. Then she says, you should come back on my last night. What was that all about?
Okay, so now the thing is, like, if I'm at this guy's place, right? Like, if I
Yeah.
am Gleason's character now, I'll probably try a couple more 100 times before I eventually give up. But it's nice. But I think in that moment he realizes that no matter what he changes or tries to do, this specific thing that's happening will keep happening in a number of different ways. It's just not in that specific period of time not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And
So is
I'm
this like the
guessing that
universe being like, she's not meant for you?
it's not meant for you. And probably in that moment he kind of realizes as well that she's kind of toying with him,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily what you want from the person you hope to fall in love with, I suppose. So that kind of, I'm thinking probably something that puts the character off from chasing after this girl, perhaps.
Okay. All right. But yes, I mean, that was
Speaking of
that was
Margot,
quite sad.
though,
Yeah.
coming back to the more critical bit is when the character's been in relationship with Rachel McAdams' character for quite some time, and I think he happens to run into Margot Robbie's character at one of the plays or
Yeah.
theater act where his girlfriend does not accompany him because she wants to take some time off, like, rest, whatever. And he happens to run into her, and there's this moment, right? Like this moment where there might be something that could happen because they're standing
Mm-hmm.
outside her hotel room, and she kind of invites him in, sort of hints at it rather. And there's that moment, right? So he's got to make a decision. Okay, so before he makes a decision, if you guys were at that spot, Pratt, let's go first. So imagine you've got Rachel
Oh,
McAdams as your
yeah.
girlfriend,
No,
right?
Rachel McAdams. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
go back. I
you go back.
wouldn't. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't kind of uh, pursue this alternative, because I mean, the added fact is that I've tried that before and I've seen how it goes. So in the sense, no, not in real life. I mean, like, if I was Tim, I've seen. So Tim has had experience where he's tried to woo Margot Robbie's character, and that's not worked out for him, right? He kind of knew she was toying. So whether I or he would want to go back to that, is I wouldn't, right? Like, knowing that it's not worked in the past, what has changed? Really, nothing has. Oh, I think, yeah, really nothing has changed. He's still that geeky, awkward guy. The only thing, he's probably now in London and he's got a good job as a lawyer, right?
Aaron, what about you though? Like, would you make the same choice, go back, or
Yeah, I think I'd probably make the same choice just because of, I mean, if you see the situation that Tim was in, and if you see the kind of relationship that he had with Mary, it wasn't purely just for looks and stuff like that, right? It was just because their personalities matched, which was why in the dark room they got on, which is why they continued to be together
And not to
post
mention,
that they were able to.
wait, again, it's one,
Yep.
right? Yeah. No, not to mention the fact that he had several tries to sort of do the deed and woo her with that.
oh yes,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
talk about.
And
Oh my
also
god. I
because,
think the faces is like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
I was trying to place which character you're talking about, like in terms
No,
of
no.
doing.
Yeah, no. Oh, obviously only one he did with.
Yeah,
yeah.
there was, in the context of the movie,
Yeah.
there was only one, just different times. But anyway,
Mm.
so yeah, I mean, yeah, I
Oh,
guess.
but the main thing, Naeem, is someone who's already committed to someone who's already committed, like yourself.
Oh, no doubt. Like,
Okay.
that's not even a question. I think I would definitely. So the thing is, I would never get to the point where I come to the hotel room. why get to that? I'd probably say by right after dinner. Like, I mean, yes, I
Yeah.
would definitely go for dinner. Right? Like, I've known this person for like that one summer or whatever. And we've had like whatever little crush was there or whatever it was. You've had a good time in this thing, right? So, and in general, you kind of want to be like, if someone says they want to have dinner with you or something, you want to be nice to them and say yes. So definitely dinner, definitely. But it ends.
Is
I,
that
I
him
don't.
being nice? Is that him being nice, or is that him wanting to see what could happen?
Yeah, I think it is that, right? Like he kind of wants, because he does revisit that situation multiple times, and then
Yeah.
like twice, I think. And the
No,
third time he just says, it's not worth it, and
that's
she
because he
then
makes a full issue out of the fact that
yes,
he called her friend a girlfriend and didn't know how to approach it. But yes, I understand that. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
but
but okay. One thing I want to ask you guys is that obviously, post he realizes that he actually loves Mary and doesn't pursue Margot Robbie. Is the Would you have told Mary that, hey, I went out for dinner with my, I mean, at this point, it's not even an ex, it's just someone I knew. And would you tell them that? Is that something that you think should have been told? Or you think it was too harmless to not be?
see, I think it's important to be in a relationship where disclosing such a thing won't be a problem. It's just a conversation to be had, in the sense that, oh, I ran into someone that had it. It's very important who the other person is in the relationship, because if it's so that knowing this bit of information makes them uncomfortable in a way, that's just their kind of personality, perhaps there's no point in kind of revealing this to them, in the sense that, not to the point where he goes to the hotel room. I think that's where he steps over the line, like going to drop her off to this thing, because even till that point you feel like he's getting carried away, right? Like
Yeah,
probably the
yeah.
best would probably be to kind of end the dinner and go their ways, separate ways, right? uh, and if it's to that point, I think, like to the point where it ends at the restaurant, they just had a meal together, I think there's not much to tell, like unless you have a very good relationship with your partner, like it's friendly thing where you kind of share general things in terms of how your day's gone about and stuff like that. But if it's something more in terms of anything and everything, your partner is a lot more possessive and perhaps a little more.
No, because I think that's what Mary says when I think the mother asks her about what are your weaknesses. She says, I'm a bit insecure. So you kind of do come across, like she does come across as being insecure. No, my only thing is, I'm just talking about the
Doesn't He
intention.
does not
The
know,
intention
right?
clearly, that intention clearly is, was rather to pursue and see where it goes. It's until when he reaches the hotel room that he realizes that it's not right and that he actually loves Mary. Now, should that have been disclosed to Mary? I know he directly goes and proposes to her, but should
I
that have
think, yeah,
been yeah, you think?
I think yes, because I think if it ends from the dinner, like where the dinner ends,
Yeah,
then it's fine. There's not much to tell, to be honest. The fact that he goes almost to the cusp of cheating on her, I think it kind of like
yeah,
kind of just like, okay, I had this moment today, whatever. Yeah. Especially because you're making this huge decision, right? And you're kind of proposing to the girl you now think or you've realized you love, sort of. So definitely from that perspective, I think it was something that he needed to kind of speak. We don't even know if he does, and it's just like something that
yeah,
happens
yeah. We don't,
at some
but
point. But
yeah,
we know that immediately he chooses to go and kind of propose, which is okay, because again, like from a point that he realizes that he loves her so much that he can't wait anymore to ask. Yeah, but I think in an ideal scenario, the immediate thing that follows that is the thing that this is what happened and this is where I realized what I wanted in life, kind of a thing. That's my
okay.
take on it.
Aaron.
Uh, I would definitely think that disclosing it would be something that's important. One is just because I think, like Naeem mentioned, I think relationships need to be open. but also for the fact is that, I mean, the world is a small place, and I think it would be even more detrimental if she were to find out from
Yeah.
someone else, let alone that other person, that like you could bump into them and like, oh, dinner was nice, and we should do it again sometime, and then like, yeah, no more weddings. So yeah, so I just think being hopeful, being open and stuff is uh quite important, just because that makes sure that you always know who the other person is on the other side when it comes to being in a relationship. Uh, and again, relationships are not all about, uh, you know, only about the good times. So sometimes, yes, the truth may hurt, but I think it's better to know than to be left in the dark. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yep, I agree. I very wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, I think that's something that's why I asked the question, because I thought that was like that's something he should have done. I think that was because of the intention. I think at that point, right? Like, and then of course,
Definitely.
then the decision comes down to her. And you're right. Like, I think because he went off with Rory. I was going to say Rogers, not Roger, Rory. So he went to Rory to the theater, and then of course Rory knows that he went out with Margot's character. So that could have easily, like you said, played out in a different way where she came to know, and that's a bigger betrayal, I feel. So, um, yeah, I think that was fine. But the fact that he proposed is fine, because I think that's clear that he had that intention. I think if it had gone
Yeah.
on for the relationship had continued, then that I felt would have been a bigger elephant in the room.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't know if the movie kind of intentionally played on it or it was unintentional, but when he initially chooses Rory to be the best man and he says, "Oh, anecdote," and I'm going to tell you about a story and stuff, and you're like, "Oh, where's this going?" But yeah, so yeah, you never know where people could find out stuff, or where you're
Was
hidden,
the other
or
friend, the other friend, Jay, I think.
Jay, yeah,
He literally
yeah,
lays
he
out
had a
the
presentation.
dating history of this guy and who he's done it with and things like that. And
but
that's crazy.
Jay is the kind of friend where he's quite a dick, like in like a he tries to be hilarious and tries too much, but I think in the heart of hearts he's quite a nice guy. So
Yeah.
he's
And I
that
Yeah,
kind
think
of
that's sort of shown at a later point, right? Like, and you, I think you do see those kind of friends in general where they they just
they
absurd
mean
in.
well, but sometimes they don't understand what their
Yeah,
actions implicate.
exactly. They
yeah,
just do the most absurd things, and you're like, my God, what's wrong with this person? But it, like, if you get to the thick of things, or like basically like deep down, this person is a really nice person in
yeah,
general. And I love that bit where it comes down to the fact that, so it's not him that realizes it, right? Like it's the sister that realizes that it's Jay, and that
Hmm.
prompts him to then kind of push her towards Jay, because
yeah. So I mean,
deep down.
talking about the sister though, I think that's a very emotional side of this entire movie. There's another one that comes later on, but I think from her standpoint, she's the sort of black sheep of the family. The rebellious character, the one that does.
To that point though, right? Like, for me, this movie is beautiful, or is so much better than any other rom-com that I've watched, because it does not solely focus on the romance between the
Yeah,
boy and the girl. It's so much about the relationships this boy has with other people in his life. And that's a very important factor, because that adds a lot more value to the movie for me.
yeah. No, but talking about the sister who's this rebellious character, it is heartbreaking to kind of see this abusive relationship that she's had with her other boyfriend. And I really love the fact that we don't often see the sibling relationship in a lot of movies, right? And especially in rom-coms, like you said, they always solely focus on just the main character and his relationship with his crush, his girlfriend or his wife. So the fact that they show about how he's there for her always. Even or she's also there for him, whether it be the Kate Moss gallery where she comes and accompanies him, or she's very supportive of his decision to go chase after her, or if it's his decision to kind of go back in time to help, either save her or then let the accident happen, then kind of, help her, heal herself and then find the right person. I think that whole segment or whole part of this movie is really nice to see.
It's very nice, but it's also like very complicated in the experience. Like the first time he realizes, like I think it takes him quite some time, right, before he realizes how bad a place his sister is in. Like
Yeah.
until like it's a little too late perhaps from that perspective, where she goes through that experience, or she meets with the accident, and she's in the
Yeah,
hospital bed.
until that time, I think his opinion of her is quite the fact that she's this rebellious character who doesn't care much, who just gets by and who's just living this life, carefree life, who doesn't take things seriously. And so I think it's only at that point where he truly understands what she's gone through, and the fact that even when he leaves her, right? I know in as a narration, he does say that Kit Kat would miss him a lot, or doesn't like that he's going away to London, but it's not like he really shows that emotion quite until later on, which is nice.
So
Yeah.
while this is all happening, right, at this point he's had a child, right?
Hmm.
And the accident that takes place with Kit Kat is during the birthday of the child, etc.,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
And and there's this moment where he travels back in time along with her to change certain things in the past that will help make things better for her as well. And then eventually, when he gets back to the same point in the timeline, he realizes there's been inherent change in the child that he had, and
Yeah. I mean, I think from his conversation with his father, sorry,
it was not
yeah.
so until that point this hadn't been discussed, like that this is something that could affect, if like once you've had a child, then going back beyond the child's birth could alter the sex of the child, the look of the child, etc., etc., all of that, this thing right now. My thing is, so he goes back and he does that change before knowing how it impacts the baby. When he realizes what's happened, I didn't get this point where he kind of goes back in time to undo what he did and kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just essentially that he wanted his daughter back and not have a son, right? Like the idea is that he's lost a child, even though it. Even I was like, why don't you just take the boy child? It's you still have a kid, you might as well.
That point I still get, right? Like
Then
it's difficult, and kind of like once you have a child, I suppose that thing is the bond you have with the child
yeah,
is quite sometimes. The child is probably a year old or whatever it is at the time when she's having her birthday. So you know for sure there is a bond there, and it's very hard to let go of. I understand the decision there. My
then
only question, he mentions that it could be any sperm that kind of like
yeah,
um
yeah.
end up winning the race, perhaps. In the How does he undo what's already been done? How does he get the exact same? Because at the end of the day, it is still the same child that comes to. How does it mean that if you kind of go back, does he then go back, undo the punch that she throws at Jimmy or whatever that guy's name is, and kind of then live out the exact moment, or how does it work?
Maybe go back to the point where he told the sister about the secret and just doesn't tell the secret or something like that. Because you just have to stop it there, right? Because
I would think
he
that.
reveals the secret and then takes her back.
Right.
So maybe just not have that meeting at all.
He
Yeah.
then takes her to that party all the way back when he
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when she said, oh, Jay, it's Jay
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
He also said that
Okay.
Jay's always been interested in you and all that. So that I think he does say that.
Yeah,
If I'm not
that is later
late.
after the
Yeah.
accident, after he allows the accident to happen, and then
Correct.
said
Correct. And that's
Because at
the
that point, he already knows that his sister has
she,
some
yeah,
feelings
yeah.
in there for Jay.
Though that party, I don't know. I think that was a pretty dickish move where he didn't kiss that friend of his and then goes back and actually does it. And I'm like, what kind of signal are you actually sending? Because clearly you're not that into her
No,
during
but
the
I think
midnight party.
no, it's not right. Like I think it's more of a tradition
Yeah,
in European this thing where New Year's you kind of kiss whoever is, and at that point I think it's more of a. It's also in the way it's done. It's very normal, I suppose. There, I'm not sure. Like, but
I
I
don't know.
guess
It felt like
because of
everyone was
the
in a
tradition,
couple mode and
like
she, yeah,
see, for instance, I think I've seen it in Friends as well, right? Like on New Year's, it's a thing where they got
yeah,
to
it
kiss.
is a thing. Yeah, yeah,
Can't
yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh, like this friend can kiss this friend and this friend can kiss this friend, but Ross can't kiss his sister, so you kind of keep things moving around, sort of a thing. But like, I think it's just from that perspective that it's a tradition as opposed to it meaning anything else. The fact that he doesn't kiss her the first time makes her feel like like it's am I that bad? I
Yeah,
suppose
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
can't just do it for the sake of like keeping up that
Fair.
tradition, and that's the I don't think he's trying to send her any signals because like mixed signals because he's basically just kind of doing it out like to make her feel happy or like she's done that tradition kind of.
and I think she also understands it because at the end of it, she just says thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Fair, fair.
yeah,
I guess that's also good. And again, I guess that goes towards his caring nature, I suppose. Yeah,
yeah,
to help anyone out. Okay, let's talk about the big emotional sort of scene or part of the movie, and that is the fact that they come to realize that the father has cancer and he's got only a few weeks to live. And I wonder from the father's point of view how many times he I know he said that he's tried to go back in time to kind of prevent it, or try to not have it, but because he's been smoking before Tim was born. It's not something that he can change without completely altering everything. So I wonder, like, and also I love the fact that he says that they've had the conversation multiple times, which is a cool thing. Like from the father's point of view, it's a really nice thing to touch. I really love the relationship that the father
They have
has,
been-
and with the children, especially with Tim. I think like he goes back in time to say that he loves Tim and everything. That's a really cool thing to have done and cool part of the movie. And yeah, I think it's a very emotional part. Like it's not easy to hear your parents say that that they know they're going to die
Yeah.
in a few weeks, and that despite the part that there's nothing that either of them can do to stop it, right? I think for me the most emotional part was the fact that he goes back to do the table tennis game, and then his father realizes that this is the last time.
Yeah, because that's the
Yeah.
first time he went to a table tennis game.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe the first time in a period. Like he's never won a game whatsoever, I suppose. Or he mentions he's not won for a long time, I suppose. That's what he
couple
mentions,
of
right?
years he said or something. Yeah,
So, for me, yeah, this is my favorite part of the movie. Right? Like I go in to this movie for very different reasons. But when I'm done with this
Yes.
movie,
Let
my
us not ask
God,
those reasons. Yes.
the feelings that I have and the emotional moments because the bond with the father, like even though it's very fleeting moments, it's not like he's the focus and a lot
Yeah.
of time is with the father, but the movie handles it so beautifully that you feel the impact, like that part where he receives the news of and like just as help. I don't know how they've managed it, but it translates to reality quite well because you feel the gut punch in the sense that you feel their helplessness in terms of like what is the use of having such power when you can't save the ones you love the most? Like it's so complex and so complicated on a whole other minuscule level. Like there are hundreds and thousands of problems in the world, but for this guy, this is like his immediate family is his life, right? It's his world, kind of a thing. And his dad is like a major, huge part of that. And like him going away, kind of, the world will never be the same again for him, sort of a thing. And that moment of realization and what it translates, and basically not being able to kind of change that in any way possible through the powers they have, is like, it's like they're in the same boat as any of us. It doesn't help to have those powers, because it doesn't at the end of the day help them undo things that really matter, per se. So yeah, it's
I
a
think
very,
it was them realizing the value of family, because he could have gone and stopped smoking, but he said that I wouldn't have met your mom, or like how the kids could have changed and all that. So you're basically risking everything for yourself, which to them as people was against the values that they had. And so, yeah.
I like the fact that, I mean, Bill Nye always looks very serious in his roles. I always thought like he would be this father who would always kind of shun his kids and be like, I'm just focused on mine, and kind of shun the kids away. But the fact that he's this very warm, loving father, I know he doesn't always show it, but in a way he does also. It's really nice. It's quite refreshing to see, and it really works. I think the way he acts it out, I think performances wise, it's brilliant to see. One thing I want to check is, obviously they have this point where they go back in time to the place where they're in the beach.
that's the thing, right? So that moment when, and it adds to the point where you said you think he's gonna be someone who shuns the kids and stuff
Yeah,
like that. There's this one point where, before the scene you're talking about, he asks him, is there, like, the child, or Gleason's character asks him, is there something you want to do before we kind of go through with this, in the sense that there's no point of return after this, right? And he says, well, there is this one thing, and it's in the way he says it, where for a moment I'm like, what's he planning? Like, is there some sort of sinister thing behind this or something like that? It's a rom-com, but like, I don't know, in the moment you kind of, you can't, like, I always kind of try to overthink things, I suppose. So in the moment I'm like sort of worried about what the father might have up his sleeve, in the sense that, but what follows, and that scene, oh my god, that scene, I just absolutely love the way they have portrayed that scene, because it immediately just shows the bonding they have, and it makes that loss feel even more heavier,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
really dives, like it's like someone's taking out a knife and like sticking it into you and kind of twisting it just
I
to make
think
you feel.
I think if it was the mother, I would have felt less sad, because she always felt this like this little weird, deranged character. But I don't know, for some reason, the father, despite having very limited screen time, I think the bond that they had, or whatever screen time both of them had, Bill Nye and Donald Gleason had, it was very good, and I felt like it did. I think normally when you have very limited screen time, the ending or the gut punch may not have been that, the impact may not be that much. But here, whatever scene that they had acted out or written very beautifully, that when it does happen, you really feel it, and it kind of does overall play a huge role there. But the reason I brought up that scene when they go back to the beach is that whenever you take someone with you, does the other person also need to be there in that same place? I don't know. It's
They
a very
talk at the
ambiguous.
same time. I saw both of them kind of clenching their fists and kind of.
Yeah, but in the sense that, because he takes the daughter, the not this, he takes the son, blah, 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 he takes the
Sister.
sister along to the party, right, holding her hand. Now, in that, does it only need to be a place where he's been, or does it need to be a place where both of them have been?
I think it has to be a place where both of them happen.
Yes,
Otherwise,
so
it
that
doesn't.
ambiguity I wasn't sure on, and because
I
it
mean,
just so
from what
happened
I
that both.
gauge from the movie, that's what seems likely. Like, you need to be a part of that point for you to be able to travel, because then it's like you traveling back to a place where you necessarily weren't present in, right? And that kind of takes away from the reality of the actual or the original this thing, in the sense that you're suddenly disappeared from that point. Like you were here 1 minute
Yeah,
and then suddenly you're like gone. And
yeah. I think
or
that would
it
be
is technically what's happening though, in a weird way, in the sense that if you
your
think
current
about it,
your that time character no longer exists because you've come in there.
exists in the reality,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
So
so it's like,
when it comes to time travel, it is a bit,
yeah, it's
yeah,
always
all
like
over the place. Yeah, but I thought it would be like a time turner kind of thing where they have to sneak and do something, but it's not. It's that you get replaced there, which is fine. I mean, I'm not criticizing. I think that's not the essence of this movie, but
that's not the essence
it,
of the story. But if you think about it, just think about it. Like you're midway conversation with this person, and boom,
yeah,
that person disappeared, and suddenly it's coming out of the room, and you're like, "What the hell just happened?" And
what the
so
hell just
yeah,
happened?
but
Also,
it's
yeah,
not guessing. That's not the focus of the movie. So yeah,
the other thing I really love that scene is when he talks to Desmond after the father passes away, and he says that the happiest moment in my life was when your father said that he loved me, and then this was the worst moment, and you kind of feel that because Desmond is this very clueless character, which is fun. He's this really innocent uncle, cute uncle, but he's so clueless that even he doesn't even know the name of the person who's sitting next to him, which is hilarious, which is fun. And I've seen not. I don't know why it's a very British thing because I've seen other British movies have this very clueless character or this very sad, innocent character. I remember it being like Alice in Wonderland also had this really old woman who was very clueless. I don't know. It just seems to be a very
he's
quintessential
not
British thing.
curious per se. He has health issues, in the sense that he has memory issues, right?
It's almost like you, man. It's like you.
It's yeah, it's implied. I don't think they ever state
It's
it.
not the same, okay? I would know someone sitting right next to me who that person is.
Yeah, but short-term memory loss. It's not a disease per se. It's not an illness. It's just that
Yeah,
he's this very he doesn't use his mind in the right way, and he's just very I don't know. I don't
but
think
is
I've never
not
thought they said
explicitly
anything.
said anything, right? Because my assumption, like we're taking things very differently in this case. For me, my assumption was that Uncle Desmond had memory issues. Like he technically had some sort of Alzheimer's or something like that, where he couldn't
Hmm.
remember a certain this thing, and probably the fact that he remembers like that thing that the father says about him at the eventual adds more value to it, because he's kind of held on to that bit. That's my way of looking at that. Um,
The the way I looked at it was that everyone kind of dismisses Uncle Desmond much like he's this sort of innocent guy who we just invite and he's just there to be around us. But uh he's just around there. But I think the father saying that he loved him really showed that someone really cared about him. I thought that was the take, but I think your take's also perfectly sound that he had the sort of I never really thought about it that way, but it's nice that we had two different takes on it. um the next thing I want to just kind of lastly touch upon is Mary's character. What did you make of her? I mean, nowadays there's a lot of talk of women are not very strong, very independent. They're these always this sort of side characters to the main actors. They're always depicted as this sort of woman, this homely wife, child needing character, right? Which she kind of is. I mean, she doesn't mind doing being this person who's there to take care, have this family, do all of that. But did you kind of see that they could have done a lot more with Mary, or were you satisfied with how the female character was kind of built?
See, I think it's important to realize what the focus or the crux of the movie is, right? In this movie that came back out like what, about a decade ago, the focus
Yeah, more
point
than that.
is this character that is Gleason, and Tim, that is, and his relationships around him. So this movie is about him, and even with him, there are some. Yes, Rachel McAdams' character does not have as impactful or focused plot in the movie. She's just sort of a side character, adding more to Tim's story in this per se. But then you have a strong character in the sister's life, right? They do show that as a focus point, and they also show that how that's being sort of disregarded or not being sort of given enough focus until the main character, in this case Tim, realizes like his mistakes, and like sort of ignoring his sister's life and things like that, and that becomes a focus point. I think it's important to kind of have a good mix of all of this, in the sense that that's also a story to tell. Like what this movie is about is also a story to tell. But you can always have movies that are focused on the girls, and you could have a movie that focused on Rachel McAdams' character, for instance, right? Like it's all about different perspectives, and media can be. It's beautiful in the way that you can have this, but you can also have this. And if I were to say, it's like perspectives, in the sense that you look from one lens, or you're made to look at from one lens when the story is being told, but equally it could be a very different take when you look at it from a different angle. And I think Last of Us is probably the best example of that you kind of see from. But it's important that to realize that different perspectives have different takes and stuff like that, but you should always be accepting of the different perspectives. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. I think it's important that, yes, you need a lot more stories where the females are the core, and they're like the main characters and things like that, which is obviously in the current day it's happening, right? You're seeing a lot more of that.
Sure. But you were okay with how the character was overall.
I think in the context of this movie, for sure. Like
sure.
I think for the focus of the movie was more, for me, from a plot point perspective, it was the relation. It's not even about Rachel McAdams and the character's love life. It's more about the relationship he has with his father. I think that's the more important bit, and family as a whole in general, not any specific person other than that. Yeah.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I agree with what Naeem had to say. I think the movie was supposed to be something that was wholesome, and I don't think there was one character that was given more priority over the other per se. It was basically as a collective that they tried to tell a story about family and the values, and then obviously the kind of battles that you have to kind of pick and choose, whether you look at self-interest versus the greater good and stuff like that way. And I think in terms of this movie, at least I personally don't think that the female characters were given a lesser thing, because in terms of impact, the uh, parts that they played did add a lot of value to what the storyteller was trying to put across. I think, like, going back to just one particular scene, like where you were saying the mother was deranged and kind of not very emotionally involved. I think one scene was when they entered the house when they knew kind of that the father was passing, and the mom says, like, I have no interest in a life without your father. And you're like, oh, that's very unlike the character that they had portrayed up until that point. And so, yeah, I think they all played a pretty significant part in trying to capture the whole story. So, yeah, I was completely okay with the roles they had.
All right. So my final question to you guys is are 3 children the optimal number of children to have? According to Rachel McAdams, yes, because then you can have one sure smart one, and even if the other 2 are dummies, at least they'll have each other. For me, is it one or is it 3?
Baby is what she called it.
Yeah.
Insurance child.
So,
I
what
think my
according to
parents
you?
would.
How many?
I think my parents would agree with that concept. I suppose.
Three.
I
Yeah.
don't know about you. I don't think your parents would be aligned with that.
No, my parents would. I wouldn't. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah. Why have that? Why even need to think about such a conundrum when you can do away with that and not have any, right? But yes, yes, if my parents are listening, well, or I think this entire episode gives a good glimpse into how we are as individuals and or partners, or spouses, or boyfriends, right?
Yeah, I would probably think so. I guess. I mean, mine is more already happened in all those fronts. For you guys, some of them, like for anyone perhaps looking, this is a good. What's the thing called?
It's
The
a
biodata.
screening process. Yeah, it's a
Yes,
screening process, or a yeah.
there's some good bachelors around here, I suppose. So, if you're interested, perhaps send your resumes in.
No, please resumes. Yeah, sure. I don't have jobs for you right now, but yes, yeah. This is one of those very weird matrimonial ads that you see on YouTube. But anything else before we end this episode? Anything else that you want to discuss? Or are we done with today's? Are we done with the movie?
I think one last thing that I just want to talk about, you briefly touched upon this point, which is the meet cute that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the point where obviously it's dark and stuff. So the fact that this person, before seeing how beautiful
Yeah.
Rachel McAdams is, falls in love with, I think you already realize that he's become fond of her in the way they've had the conversation and everything's that kind of happened from there. And then he kind of waits outside for her, and you see this nervousness
Yeah.
of like on his face, because he can't wait to see who it is or how she looks and things like that, because it's as simple as like uh, I mean, perhaps we did not see this, but earlier in, like, when the computers were launched and you had a lot of these IM messengers and stuff, right? I remember a lot of my cousins used to be on these chatting websites, and they used to kind of chat a lot with random strangers, and you kind of get to know each other and things like that.
Like
And
an Orkut. No, even before that.
Hotmail Messenger for, or Yahoo Chat, or whatever it was back in,
Oh, okay. Sure. Right.
all
Yeah.
of that. And you used to meet, I guess, strangers through that bit, right? And I guess in the conversations you had, you kind of built the picture of what this person perhaps looks like, and then eventually it translates. I think the beauty of this movie is in the, I think I've said the word beauty of this in this movie, or beauty of this movie, quite a bit in during this whole
It is a very
podcast.
beautiful movie, so I
Yeah,
wouldn't blame you. Yeah.
right. So coming back to that, I think it's nice in the way they kind of portray that he's already fallen in love with that conversation, as opposed to, it's not the looks per se, it's not the sight that
Hmm.
matters. Already fond of her by the time he's kind of had those conversations and stepped out from there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that was a true blind date in a way. Was not technically, but also very
is
very
is
fortuitous. Very
yeah,
fortuitous that the only seats that were available were with two bachelorettes or two single women. So yeah, it was
it had
very,
to happen for the plot.
it had to happen for the plot. Yeah, no, but it does happen, right? You When you least expect it, I suppose things happen. I think when you go
Yeah,
chasing things around, then it just
things
feels
don't
like
happen,
an eternity. Yeah, it feels like an eternity, right?
I
So
suppose.
with that, I guess we conclude today's episode and our discussion about time. About time. Discussion on about time. That's too many abouts. But thank you for listening, watching us on either Spotify or YouTube. Hit the like button, share, subscribe with friends and family. Hit the subscribe button, share with friends and family. Don't subscribe with friends and family. But yes, get them get them participating as well into the three body narrative. Yeah, that we do more fireworks like that. If our subscriber count goes up and up, we'll get Naeem to do that every episode. But thank you for joining us in our discussion. Do let us know what your thoughts are as well about the movie. And I guess we will catch you sometime. That's it for the three body narrative. See you.